Welcome, everyone. My name is Sarah Simpson, and I will be going over the NASW Code of Ethics Client Rights today. I'm coming at this presentation from an NASW standpoint, so understanding the ethics of the NASW as a social worker. I am an LCSW in the state of Arizona, and one of the privileges I feel that I had was during the time that I was in school, I was also employed by a school, a college, and one of the full-time faculty there in the social work department was the president of the NASW Arizona chapter. And so I got to study underneath her for a while. I spent a decade working there, so I worked there even when I was done with school. And I learned a lot from her. I also began tutoring other students in social work, and I also formed the social work club so that we could teach about code of ethics and things like that as students were moving on in their journey and becoming social workers. The purpose of my presentation is to help you to feel empowered and to come away with a deeper understanding of the NASW Code of Ethics, specifically client rights. We'll be covering consent, confidentiality, resolving concerns, and more. I want to start obviously with the client, but then we'll also be moving into therapy later on as well. But this is the client rights. We will start with informed consent to clients in therapy. Since I'm coming at this from a therapeutic standpoint, as I own my own private practice, this is going to be a lot about private practice. So this process is grounded in the NASW Code of Ethics and ensures that clients understand their rights, the therapeutic process, and what to expect. Informed consent is not just a formality, it's a foundation to trust, collaboration, and ethical care. When I start in my office introducing my clients to informed consent, I always introduce them in a way that is empowering to them. And I might say something like, "Thank you for meeting with me today. Before we dive into a session, I want to share some important information about the therapy process. This ensures you're fully informed about your rights and what to expect. Please feel free to ask questions along the way." I usually say, "Hey, this is a time that we're getting to know each other. I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions, but I also welcome you to ask me questions. This is us getting to know each other." This sets a collaborative tone and gives the client permission to engage actively in this process. A lot of our clients might be coming in to their first session. They might be really fearful, not sure what to expect. Many of my clients are actually brand new to therapy and have never seen a therapist before. And so I thank them for trusting me enough to come in for the first time. And then next, I explain the process of therapy. It's essential to clarify what happens in therapy, what it is and what it's not. So I might say something like, "Therapy is a space where we get to work together to explore your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. My role is to support you in identifying patterns, navigating challenges, and building new skills. I use approaches like CBT and DBT to tailor treatments that you'll need. While therapy can be helpful, it's not a quick fix, and progress can take time. You will get out of it what you put into it. There will be ups, there will be downs, but we'll work through this together." I then move into the outline of client rights. Clients must know their rights to feel safe and respected, and I share these key points. You have the right to ask questions, decline suggestions, or end therapy at any time. If you decide to stop, I'll provide referrals and resources for you. You also have the right to confidentiality. What we discuss stays private with a few exceptions. And then I tell them, unless you're a danger to yourself or other people. So being transparent about rights builds trust and encourages empowerment. So the next I go into the legal part of it. Everything that we say here stays here, except for if you're a risk of harming yourself or others, if I learn about abuse or neglect of a child or an elder or a vulnerable adult, or if the court orders me to share information. I assure my clients that I'll prioritize their privacy and let them ask questions. Transparency about confidentiality builds a sense of safety, especially for those clients who have never come in before. Just like I said, I have a lot of clients, this is their first time that they've ever been in therapy, and so it's really important to lay down the groundwork of like, these are what I'm confining to. I'm going to keep you safe, I'm going to keep your confidentiality, but in case, this is what I might need to break it for. I am a mandated reporter. It's equally important to explain the practical aspects of what a client can expect, such as, my sessions are 53 minutes and occur weekly. If you need to cancel, please notify me as soon as possible. For my private practice, there is a fee of $150 for a late cancellation within 24 hours. The session fee is $150 and payment is due at the time of sessions. Let me know if finances become a concern. For emergencies in between sessions, please contact 911 as I am not available immediately. Just to be sure to set clear expectations and communication. I always close by emphasizing the collaborative nature of therapy. I might say something such as, therapy works best when we both engage in the process. Please let me know if something isn't working or if you'd like to explore a different approach. Your feedback is really important to me. Finally, I review the written informed consent with the client. I answer questions and ensure that they are comfortable signing this. Just remember that informed consent is more than a checklist. It is the first step in building a therapy relationship built on trust, respect, and transparency. By dedicating just a few minutes to this process, we set the tone for ethical and effective care. Next, we'll move into confidentiality, even though we just touched on it a little bit. So, confidentiality is explicitly addressed in the NASW Code of Ethics under Standard 1.07, Privacy and Confidentiality. This standard states that social workers must protect clients' private information and only discuss it when proper consent is given or legally required. Why is confidentiality so vital? Well, it fosters trust. Clients are more likely to share openly when they know that their information is protected. It respects autonomy. By safeguarding privacy, we honor clients' rights to control their personal information. It upholds professionalism. Maintaining confidential refrains our commitment to ethical practices and client well-being. While confidentiality is crucial, there are specific situations where disclosure is ethically or legally mandated. So some of these exclusions include imminent harm or to self or others. If a client is at risk for suicide or poses a serious threat to someone else, we are ethically obligated to intervene to ensure safety. This may involve notifying authorities or emergency contacts. If a client reveals a plan to harm a coworker, for example, our duty to warn and protect overrides confidentiality. I am sure that at some point we will have to intervene with a client who is either a danger to themselves or others. Mandated reporting of abuse and neglect. Social workers are required to report suspected abuse or neglect of vulnerable populations, including children, elders, and individuals with disabilities. For instance, if a client discloses ongoing child abuse in their household, we must report this to the appropriate child protection agency. Court orders or legal proceedings. If subpoenaed, we may need to release client records to testify in court. However, we should attempt to limit disclosure to only what is necessary and seek legal counsel when possible. Something that I find important to note here is that we do not give client notes to lawyers. If a client gives us permission to give the information to the lawyer and it's at their request, that's a different thing. We can absolutely do that with consent, written consent. Otherwise, we are not obligated to give any type of notes or anything at all about our client to a lawyer. However, if we are sent a letter by a court, we are definitely obligated to respond. Client consent. Clients can authorize disclosure by signing a written release. For instance, they may request that we share information with a family member or coordinate care with their doctor. Confidentiality can sometimes present complex ethical dilemmas, such as clients from different cultural backgrounds may have varying expectations about privacy. For instance, some clients may feel more comfortable involving family in their care, while others may value strict confidentiality. We must navigate these dynamics with sensitive and open communication. To safeguard confidentiality, social workers can implement the following best practices. So, first, obtain informed consent. At the start of the therapy, explain confidentiality and its limits clearly, just as we just talked about in the last slide. Ensure clients understand when and why information might be disclosed. Secure client records. Store records securely, whether in physical files or encrypted electronic systems. Limit access to authorized personnel only. My personal rule is double locks. For example, I personally keep my records in Simple Practice, which is protected by a password, in my computer that is also protected by a password. I do have some handwritten notes, which I keep in a file, which is in a lockbox, which is also locked in my locked office. Use discretion in communication. Avoid discussing client information in public or unsecured setting. For instance, never share sensitive details over email without an encryption. Regularly review policies. Stay updated on state and federal laws, such as HIPAA, and attend continuing education on confidentiality to refine your practice. By incorporating these access to records. The NASW Code of Ethics, specifically Standard 1.08, Access to Records, states, social workers should provide clients with reasonable access to records concerning the client. This right is grounded in several core ethical principles. The first being autonomy. Clients have the right to make informed decisions about their care, and access to their records supports this. Also, transparency. Open access to records builds trust between the client and the therapist. And collaboration. Sharing records empowers clients to actively participate in their therapy journey. It is important to emphasize that providing access to records is not just a legal obligation. It is an ethical commitment to supporting client rights and well-being. Legal considerations and standards. In addition to the NASW Code of Ethics, client rights to access their records are reinforced by law and regulations such as HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. HIPAA grants clients with the right to access their protected health information, PHI, including therapy notes, except for psychotherapy process notes, which are afforded additional protection. State laws. Each state may have specific regulations regarding the scope of access and timeliness for fulfilling client requests. For example, under HIPAA, providers generally have 30 days to respond to a client's written request to have access to their records, with limited extensions allowed for specific circumstances. While clients generally have the right to access their records, there are exceptions where access may be restricted to protect the client or others. According to the NASW Code of Ethics and HIPAA, risk of harm to the client or others. If reviewing the record could result in harm to the client's mental health or physical safety, access may be restricted. For example, if a client is in a fragile emotional state and reading detailed case notes could re-traumatize them, the therapist may limit the access. Third-party confidentiality. If the record includes information shared by a third party, such as a family member, releasing the information without their consent could violate the confidentiality. Legal constraints. Certain legal processing or court orders may limit a client's access to their record. When denying access, the therapist must provide a clear explanation, and document the reason of this decision. So they can't just do it. They absolutely have to have a reason to do so, and they have to have this documented. Whenever possible, alternative approaches such as summarizing key information should be considered to meet the client's needs. I personally ask myself when I'm writing my own notes, how would my client respond if they read this note? Is it black and white without my own emotions in it? It's not about me. These are their notes. This is about them. This is their journey. This is their therapy. Navigating challenges and best practices. Providing access to records can sometimes be challenging, particularly when dealing with sensitive or complex cases. Here are best practices to navigate these situations ethically and effectively. Be transparent from the start. During the informed consent process, explain client rights to access their records and discuss how sensitive information will be documented. Document thoroughly. Write case notes with the assumption that clients may review them. Focus on objective, factual information and avoid giving subjective or judgmental language. Provide context. When sharing records, offer to review them with the client to clarify any confusion or potentially distressing information. For example, if diagnostic terms or clinical observations are included, explain their meaning in a positive, supportive way. Consult supervisors or legal experts. If you are unsure about whether to release certain information, consult a supervisor, ethical committee, or legal expert to ensure your decision aligns with ethical and legal standards. The ability for clients to access their records is essential for promoting transparency, collaboration, and client empowerment. At the same time, it presents unique challenges for social workers, especially when managing sensitive or complex information. So when you're needing help, if you need somebody, there should be people in your area, somebody in your state who offers these types of consultations. Non-discrimination. Social workers and therapists are ethically bound to provide equitable, inclusive, and respectful care of all clients, regardless of their background or identity. This principle ensures that every client feels valued, heard, and empowered in their therapy journey. The NASW Code of Ethics explicitly addresses non-discrimination under Standard 4.02. Social workers should not practice, condone, facilitate, or collaborate with any form of discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, age, marital status, political belief, religion, immigration status, or mental or physical ability. This standard reflects the core ethical values of social justice, our commitment to challenging systematic inequalities and ensuring that all individuals have access to high quality care. From a legal perspective, non-discrimination is also reinforced in other laws, such as Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in federally funded programs. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, protected individuals with disabilities from discrimination. State anti-discrimination laws. These often expand protected to individual sexual orientation, gender identity, and other marginalized identities. Barriers to non-discriminatory care. Despite these ethical and legal frameworks, many clients face barriers to equitable care. Let's explore some of these challenges and how they can manifest in therapy settings. Implicit bias. Even well-meaning therapists may hold unconscious biases that influence their attitudes, their language, or treatment decisions. For example, assuming a client's relationship stems from their age gap with our partner rather than other factors is an example of a bias that can hinder trust and therapeutic outcomes. I've had this before in an agency I worked at. I've had people that were discriminating upon the age gap of the couple. The girl was 19 and the guy was in his 50s. That was not the only reason why their marriage was not working out. Another is cultural insensitivity. Lack of cultural competence can alienate clients from diverse backgrounds. For instance, a therapist unfamiliar with cultural norms around family roles might misinterpret a client's behavior or values. Systematic inequities. Clients from marginalized communities often face barriers like limited access to care, language barriers, or distrust of providers due to historical injustice. These systematic issues can impact their willingness to engage in therapy. Microaggressions in therapy. Subtle comments or behaviors, such as misgendering somebody or making assumptions based on stereotypical behavior and stereotyping somebody, can cause harm and disrupt the therapeutic alliance. That is a microaggression. Best practices for providing non-discriminatory care. To address these barriers, therapists must actively work to create an inclusive and affirming environment. Here are some best practices to ensure non-discriminatory care. Practice cultural humility. Adapt a learning mindset, acknowledging that we are not experts in every client's experience. For example, instead of making assumptions, ask open-ended questions to better understand a culture that the client identifies with or personal context. That is practicing cultural humility. Address biases and microaggressions. Engage in regular self-reflection and training to recognize and mitigate implicit biases. Seek consultation and supervision when needed. Affirm diverse identities. Use inclusive language and honor clients' self-identification, such as pronouns, names, and identities. This demonstrates respect and fosters trust. Advocate for equitable access. Advocate for policies and resources that address systematic inequalities in mental health care. For example, connecting clients with sliding scale options or interpreting sessions. So, like, if somebody is needing an interpreter, make sure that they have interpretation services. So these things can remove barriers to care. Continuing education. Stay updated on the unique challenges faced by marginalized communities through professional development and training. Consider attending workshops on anti-racism, transgender affirming care, or disability injustice. You want to be well versed in your clients' unique challenges so that you can better serve them. The impact of non-discriminatory care. Providing non-discriminatory care has profound benefits of both clients and therapists. For example, for the client, it fosters trust, safety, and a stronger therapeutic alliance, empowering clients to engage fully in their healing process. For a therapist, it aligns with our ethical commitment to social justice and enhances the effectiveness and inclusivity of our practice. When clients feel seen, when clients feel heard, and when clients feel respected, they are more likely to experience positive therapeutic outcomes. By upholding these non-discriminatory rights, we honor the dignity and worth of every individual, challenge systematic inequalities, and contribute to a more just and inclusive society. As a social worker, it is our responsibility to actively promote equality and inclusion in the aspect of our work. Ensuring quality care goes beyond meeting basic professional standards. It involves delivering services that are ethical, evidence-based, and culturally sensitive, as well as being tailored to each client's unique needs. This commitment reflects our dedication to the dignity, worth, and well-being of those we serve. Ethical foundations are quality care. The NASW Code of Ethics emphasizes the importance of providing quality care throughout several different principles and standards. Commitment to clients, Standard 1.01. This principle reminds us that clients are our primary responsibility. Every decision and action that we take must prioritize the best interest of the client. Competence. Standard 1.04. Social workers must continually enhance their knowledge and skills to provide the highest level of care. This means staying informed about new research, techniques, and cultural considerations relevant to our practice. Integrity of the profession, Standard 5.01. To ensure quality care, we uphold the integrity of the social work profession, fostering trust and respect in our field. Quality care is not just an ethical obligation, it is a practice commitment to helping clients achieve meaningful outcomes in their therapy journey. Defining quality care in therapy. What does quality care look like in a therapy setting? It can be broken down into several components. The first is ethical practices. Quality care begins with adherence to ethical standards. This includes respecting confidentiality, obtaining informed consent, and addressing conflicts of interest. Clients must feel safe and supported in their therapy relationship. The next would be evidence-based approaches. Quality care relies on scientifically validated interventions. For example, a therapist working with a client experiencing PTSD might use EMDR, while somebody working with borderline personality might use GBT. Cultural competence. To provide quality care, the therapist must understand and respect each client's cultural backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences. This involves ongoing self-awareness and education to avoid biases or misunderstandings. Individualized treatment. Each client needs a unique and qualified care treatment specific for them. This requires tailoring interventions to align with their goals, preferences, and circumstances. For example, therapy with a client with high anxiety may look very different from somebody who is depressed. Consistency and accountability. Quality care requires therapists to show up consistently and be accountable for their actions. This includes maintaining professional boundaries, following through on treatment plans, and being transparent with clients about their progress. Barriers to providing quality care. Unfortunately, barriers can hinder our ability to deliver quality care. Identifying these challenges is the first in addressing them. Burnout and compassion fatigue. Therapists experiencing emotional exhaustion may struggle to provide the level of care that their clients deserve. Systematic challenges, limited resources, high caseloads, and systematic inequalities can create obstacles to delivering personalized, effective care. Bias and lack of training. Without adequate training or cultural competence, therapists may inadvertently provide care that is not inclusive or effective for all clients. Provider-client mismatch. Sometimes a client needs may not align with a therapist's expertise. In these cases, referring the client to a more appropriate provider is an ethical obligation and the cornerstone for quality care. I personally conduct video consultations with all of my prospective clients prior to our first session to ensure that I feel that we'll be a good fit. I want to see how that person talks. I want to see how they act, and I want to see how they move in session. And I want them to do the same with me. I want them to feel safe working with me, and I want to feel safe working with them. I have read it somewhere that rapport is 70% of the work. And so for me, it's really important that I feel that we're a good fit. And I want them to feel that we're a good fit as well. Strategies for ensuring quality care. How can we as social workers and therapists ensure that we're consistently providing high quality care? Here are some actionable strategies. Ongoing professional development. Attend workshops, seek supervision, and stay informed about advancements in the field. This ensures your skills and knowledge remain relevant and effective. I personally find it really good to invest in a couple of magazines that I feel are up to date and look at those and to see what's going on in our profession. It's a really quick glimpse into the latest news and latest research in the field. Cultural humility. Approach every client with curiosity and respect, recognizing that their experience and identity may be different from your own. Regular self-reflection. Reflect on your practice to identify areas for growth. For example, ask yourself, am I providing interventions that align with my client's needs and goals? I personally have the client's treatment plan in front of me when I'm working with them to ensure that we are at least hitting on one of those goals per each session. I do this if I'm providing telehealth. I have this treatment plan in front of me, and if I'm seeing somebody in person, I read it over really quickly before I go into session with them. I want to make sure that my sessions and my notes and everything is in line with that treatment plan. Client-centered feedback. Invite clients to share their perspective on their therapy experience. Their feedback can help you improve and ensure the needs are being met. Self-care and supervision. Prioritize your well-being and seek supervision when faced with challenges. A well-supported therapist is better equipped to provide quality care. I personally seek consultation from others who have been in the field longer than I have. This is particularly helpful to me as I'm now alone in my solo practice. For my own self-care, I see a therapist and I try to schedule a workload that will be sustainable to me. To me, this means offering therapy 2 days, so Monday and Tuesday, having a day off, which is Wednesday, and working another 2 days, Thursday and Friday, and having a weekend off. By committing to ethical practices, cultural competence, and evidence-based interventions, we empower our clients to achieve meaningful growth and healing. Quality care requires intentionality, accountability, and deep respect for the individuals that we serve. By continuing to strive for excellence, we honor not only our clients, but also our core values to our profession. Professional boundaries. As therapists, we operate in deeply personal and vulnerable spaces with our clients, which makes maintaining professional boundaries extremely important. Boundaries protect both the client and the therapist, ensuring that the therapeutic relationship remains ethical, effective, and focused on the client's well-being. The ethical foundation of professional boundaries. The NASW Code of Ethics provides clear guidance on the importance of professional boundaries. Standard 1.06 Dual Relationships. Social workers should not engage in dual or multiple relationships with clients or former clients in which there is a risk of exploitation or potential harm to the client. This includes relationships that could impair objectively or create conflict of interest, such as a friendship, a business dealing, or romantic involvement. Integrity Standard 4.04. Therapists are expected to act with integrity, avoiding situations where personal or professional interest may conflict with their duty to the client. Cultural sensitivity. Boundaries must be culturally informed. What is considered appropriate in one culture context may be different in another. So therapists need to navigate boundaries with cultural humility and respect. By maintaining professional boundaries, we create a safe and predictable space where clients can focus on their growth and their healing. That's the whole reason they're in therapy anyways. Common boundaries, challenges in therapy. Despite clear ethical standards, boundary challenges are inevitable in therapy. Here are some common scenarios therapists may encounter. The first is blurring of roles. A client may see you as a friend or a confidant rather than a professional. This can happen when sessions become too informal or when you share too much about your personal life. Also, physical boundaries. Touch, such as a hug or a handshake, may be a sensitive area. While some clients may find physical gestures comforting, others may perceive them as violating of their personal space. Emotional boundaries. Over-identifying with client struggles can lead to emotional entanglement, which may impact your ability to remain objective and effective as a therapist. Transference and countertransference are a very real thing. Social media boundaries. With this rise of social media, clients may try to connect with therapists online, leading to potential boundary violations if not handled carefully. For me personally, I handle this by having an online presence that anyone can look at. I only post posts that are, most of those are mentally health related and positive. I don't have my family on any of my social media. I don't have anything that says I'm connected to my husband. I'm not even his friend on Facebook or any other type of social media. Dual relationships in small communities. In rural or close-knit communities, therapists may find themselves in dual relationships that are unavoidable. This might mean running into a client at a social event or a shared community space. For example, I had gone to a restaurant to eat lunch, and while I was eating lunch, I had a client come up to me, and she started telling everyone around us that I was her therapist. I personally was very embarrassed, but this does happen in a tiny community. One way that I try to lessen this chance of happening is that I have my husband do the grocery shopping. I have friends in my former town that I connect with online, and I travel a few hours away to a much bigger city to do social things on at least a monthly basis. Strategies for maintaining professional boundaries. To maintain ethical and professional boundaries, therapists must be proactive and intentional. Here are some practical strategies. Establish clear expectations from the start. Use the informed consent process to outline professional boundaries, including confidentiality, session limits, and your availability outside of session. I have one client who, if I gave her all the time in the world, she would take it. So I have to have very clear boundaries with her and her time in her session. Practice self-awareness. Regularly reflect on your feelings and behaviors with your clients. Ask yourself, am I becoming too emotionally involved? Am I projecting my own experience onto this client? Set limits on self-disclosure. While occasional self-disclosure can help build rapport, it should always serve as the client's therapeutic goal. For instance, sharing a personal story about overcoming anxiety might be appropriate, but discussing your relationship struggles probably would not be. I personally can't stress this enough. This is really important to me. As a therapist who sees a therapist, it took me years to find my therapist. I would go to therapy in the past and would share my personal struggles, and the other person would try to relate too much, and I felt like I was paying them to be my therapist, yet I was being the therapist, and they were being the client. So I was paying to provide somebody else therapy. Navigate physical boundaries thoroughly and thoughtfully. If a client initiates physical contact, such as a hug, consider their cultural context, therapeutic need, and your own comfort level. If unsure, a polite but firm response, such as "I prefer to keep our relationship professional," can clarify the boundaries. Handle social media interactions professionally. Establish a policy for social media in your practice. For example, you might include a statement in your informed consent form explaining that you don't accept friends' requests or engage with clients on social platforms. Seek supervision. If you encounter a challenging boundary situation, consult with a supervisor or a colleague. Outside perspectives can help you navigate complex scenarios ethically and effectively. Address boundary crossing early. If a boundary is crossed, address it immediately and professionally. For example, if a client begins asking personal questions, you might just say, "I'd like to bring the focus back to your goals for therapy." The benefits of clear boundaries. Maintaining professional boundaries has a significant benefit for both clients and therapists. For clients, clear boundaries create a safe, consistent space where they can focus on their healing and their growth. For a therapist, boundaries protect against burnout, compassion fatigue, and ethical dilemmas, allowing for us to provide ethical care and effective care as we care for ourselves and others. When boundaries are respected, the therapy relationship thrives, creating trust, respect, and meaningful progress. Transparency and competence with clients. Upholding the NASW standards. These principles outlined in the NASW Code of Ethics are a foundation of trust, effectiveness, and professionalism in our work. Transparency ensures that clients fully understand the therapy process, and competence guarantees that they receive the highest standard of care. Together, they protect the integrity of the client-therapy relationship and promote positive outcomes. Ethical foundations of transparency and competence. Transparency is rooted in Standard 1.03, informed consent, and 1.07, privacy and confidentiality. Social workers must clearly communicate the purpose, goal, risk, and limitation of therapy. Clients have the right to understand what to expect and make informed decisions about their care. Competence. Competence is addressed in Standard 1.04. This standard emphasizes that therapists must provide services within their area of expertise, continually improve those skills, and apply evidence-based practices to ensure effective care. It also requires social workers to recognize their limits and seek supervision or training when faced with challenges outside of their scope of practice. Both principles reflect our commitment to respecting the autonomy, dignity, and well-being of our clients. Transparency in practice. What does transparency in practice look like? One thing is clear communication at intake. Transparency begins during the informed consent process, explaining the nature of the therapy, your qualification, your fees, your confidentiality policies, and any limits to confidentiality. Setting realistic goals. Be honest about what therapy can and cannot achieve. If a client presents with a goal outside of your experience or expertise, such as a specialized treatment for an eating disorder, you should explain this and offer a referral if necessary. Ongoing updates. Transparency isn't a one-time event. Keep clients informed throughout their entire progress. Any changes to their treatment plan or limitations that you encounter. For example, if a client isn't responding to a chosen therapeutic approach, you might say something like, "I think we need to adjust our strategy to better meet your needs. Let's explore other methods together." I personally ask for my clients' buy-in, and I follow up with something like, "What do you think about that?" If I state something, I always say, "What do you think about that?" Or is this something that you may agree with? Do you think that this is the right approach for you? I want the client to know that their opinion on their personal care matters to me. Addressing misunderstandings. If a client misinterprets your role or a therapeutic concept, clarify this promptly. This maintains trust and ensures that they feel informed throughout their journey. Competence in practice. Let's look at how competence manifests in therapy. The first is providing evidence-based care. Competence means using interventions supported by research. For example, you might use CBT for somebody who has anxiety, or DBT for someone who is emotionally dysregulated. Staying within your scope. Competent therapists recognize their limits. If a client needs somebody that exceeds your expertise, it is your ethical duty to refer them to a qualified provider. I have a personal example of this. A couple had come to me asking for couples therapy to work on being better partners for each other and work on reducing anxiety so that they could communicate easier. I have experience working with couples, communication, and anxiety, so I agreed. Upon our intake session, it was clear that there was other issues. One partner had been living a poly lifestyle for 15 years and within their 20-year marriage, and the other partner was living a monogamous lifestyle during their marriage. The client who was monogamous wanted to have a monogamous lifestyle and only would have their partner without anybody else, just in a monogamous relationship. So they wanted me to come in and tell their partner who was polyamorous how to have a monogamous relationship that they did not want. I didn't feel like I had expertise in this type of a situation, and so I referred out during that session. Continual learning. Therapy is a dynamic field, and staying competent requires ongoing education. Attend workshops, seek supervision, and stay updated on new research. For example, if you're going to be working with transgender clients, you will want to specialize in training, you'll want to go to specialized training in affirming therapy to ensure that your approach is inclusive and effective. Self-reflection and supervision. Regularly evaluate your skills and your bias. Ask yourself, am I providing the best possible care? Are there areas where I need more training? Supervision can provide valuable feedback and help you to grow as a therapist. Challenges to transparency and competence. Despite our best intentions, challenges can arise. One may be time constraints. High caseloads or limited session times may make it difficult to fully explain the process or address all client concerns. Personal bias. Unexamined biases can impact transparency or lead to ineffective interventions. Burnout. Emotional exhaustion may impair your ability to stay transparent or competent. Recognizing these challenges is the first step to overcoming them. 5 strategies to maintain transparency and competence. 1 is document everything. Keep thorough records on informed consent discussions, treatment plans, and progress updates. Documentation protects both you and the client. 2, create a welcoming environment. Encourage clients to ask questions and voice concerns. For example, at the end of a session, you might ask, do you feel clear about what we discussed today? Are there any other questions that I can answer? 3, invest in professional development. Make a habit of attending workshops, reading new research, and seeking certifications. Set professional growth goals each year. For me personally, I love online CE credits. It is set up with continuing education credits available, and they have a plethora of videos and a wealth of knowledge on that platform. I appreciate websites like this so that I can learn at my own pace, and they also offer topics I'm interested in. Number 4, seek feedback. Invite clients to provide feedback on your approach. This shows transparency and helps you identify areas for improvement. I offer a survey every 3 months to different clients within my therapy practice. With a Likert scale of questions, such as on a scale of 1 to 10, I feel my therapist understands me. On a scale of 1 to 10, I feel confident in my therapist understanding of my personal case and this person helps me work on my goals. This was something that was implemented into me when I first started my therapy journey. The agency that I worked at had this handout that they would give a questionnaire every 3 months to different clients. I think it's a really good idea just to see how I'm progressing and making sure that I am meeting my clients' needs. Number 5, prioritize self-care. Maintaining your own mental health and energy level is critical to providing competent care. By implementing these strategies, you can demonstrate respect for your clients and commitment to your profession. Transparency empowers clients by ensuring that they fully understand the therapy process, and competence ensures that the care that they receive is both ethical and effective. By upholding these principles, we honor the commitment to the NASW Code of Ethics and our own well-being of our clients. Cultural and ethical sensitivity in therapy. As therapists, we have the privilege and the responsibility of working with clients from a diverse background, identity, and experiences. The NASW Code of Ethics challenges us to approach each client with humility, respect, and a commitment to their unique needs. The NASW Code of Ethics provides clear guidance on both ethical and cultural sensitivities. Standard 1.05, Cultural Competence and Social Diversity states, social workers should understand cultural and its function in human behavior and society, recognizing the strength that exists in all cultures. This includes being aware of your own cultural values and biases and how they may influence your interactions with clients. Ethical Sensitivity, Standard 1.01, Commitment to Clients, emphasizes placing the well-being of clients first while respecting autonomy, dignity, and self-determination. Additionally, Standard 1.02, Self-determination, encourages social workers to honor client rights to make their own choices, even when their choices differ from your own values. These principles remind us that cultural and ethical sensitivity are not optional. They are fundamental to ethical and effective care. Understanding cultural sensitivity in practice. Cultural sensitivity requires us to understand and respect the unique cultural identities of our clients. This includes their ethnicity, race, religion, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, abilities, and disabilities. Here is what cultural sensitivity looks like in practice. Learning about cultural context. For example, a client from a collectivist culture may prioritize family decisions over individual autonomy. Understanding this value can help you align with your therapeutic approach with their worldview. Avoiding assumptions. Never assume that you understand a client's cultural experience based on stereotypes. Instead, approach each client as an individual. Ask open-ended questions, like how do you and your cultural values shape the way that you see the situation? Addressing power dynamics. Acknowledge the power imbalance in the therapy relationship and any systemic inequalities that your clients may face. This creates a space where the clients feel safe disclosing experiences of discrimination or oppression. Using inclusive language. Be mindful of the words that you use. For instance, instead of assuming a client is married, ask about their partner or significant other. This avoids alienating clients with diverse relationship structures. Understanding ethical sensitivities in practice. Ethical sensitivity is the ability to navigate complex ethical dilemmas with professionalism and integrity. It requires balancing the NASW's ethical standards with the unique needs of each client. Here are the key elements of ethical sensitivity in therapy. Respecting autonomy. Clients have the right to make decisions about their life, even if their decisions differ from your personal belief. For example, a client may choose a path that aligns with their cultural or religious values, even if it conflicts with Western therapy models. Navigating confidentiality. Ethical sensitivity requires understanding when to break confidentiality, such as in cases of imminent harm, while still respecting clients' privacy as much as possible. Avoiding value imposition. Therapists must avoid imposing their own values on clients. For example, if a client holds a religious belief that their faith being different from yours, or their viewpoints being different from yours, it's essential to honor the belief while helping them navigate any concerns. as far as their own religion. Seek supervision. When you need to seek supervision, seek supervision. Consult with a supervisor or a colleague. For instance, if you're uncertain how to approach a conflict between a client's cultural practices and ethical standards, supervisors can provide clarity and guidance. Challenging the cultural and ethical sensitivity. While cultural and ethical sensitivity are essential, they can also be challenging. Implicit bias. Even with the best intentions, therapists may carry unconscious biases that affect their work. Cultural complexity. Clients may identify with multiple cultures or experience internal conflicts between cultural values. Ethical dilemmas. Balancing cultural practices with ethical standards can be complex. For example, how do you address a cultural practice that may be harmful to a client's well-being? Acknowledging these challenges is the first step in addressing them. Strategies for cultural and ethical sensitivity. To navigate these challenges, consider the following strategies. Engage in continuous learning. Attend cultural competent workshops. Read about diverse populations and seek training on ethical decision making. Practice cultural humility. Adapt a mindset of lifelong learning. Instead of assuming expertise, ask clients to teach you about their cultural perspectives. Use an ethical decision-making model. And when faced with ethical dilemmas, use frameworks like the NASW ethical decision-making process to evaluate options and outcomes. Seek client feedback. Create a safe space for clients to share their perspectives on their approaches. So the approach that you're providing them, is that what they think is right for them, or do they need it changed? For example, you might say, I want to make sure that I'm being respectful of your cultural value. Is there anything I should keep in mind as we work together? That is one thing that I ask in the very first session. By incorporating these strategies, you can uphold cultural and ethical sensitivity in your client interactions. Addressing concerns with clients. One of the most essential aspects of creating a trusting, effective relationship is the ability to address concerns that may arise between the client and the therapist. These concerns can range from misunderstandings about the therapeutic process to issuing surrounding boundaries, progress, or feelings of discomfort. As a therapist, it is our responsibility to navigate these concerns with professionalism, compassion, and adherence to the ethical standards set forth by the NASW Code of Ethics. Let's begin with the NASW Code of Ethics, which offers important guidance on how we should address client concerns in the therapeutic setting. Standard 1.01, Commitment to Clients. This standard emphasizes that the primary responsibility of social workers is to promote the well-being of our clients. This means that when concerns arise, we should prioritize listening to and addressing the client's feelings and needs. Standard 1.02, Self-determination. Clients have the right to make their own decisions, including how to express and handle concerns about therapy. Our role is to facilitate the process in a way that empowers them while respecting their autonomy. Standard 1.04, Competence. We must be competent in addressing client concerns. This means not only addressing immediate concerns, but also recognizing when additional resources or referrals are necessary. Standard 1.07, Privacy and Confidentiality. We must ensure that clients feel safe expressing their concerns, knowing that their privacy is protected, and that their concerns will be handled with respect and confidentiality. Common client concerns in therapy. Clients have a variety of concerns throughout the therapeutic process. Some of them may include feeling unheard or misunderstood. Clients may feel that their concerns that they're having are not being fully understood. This can happen if a therapist's response seems dismissive or if the client needs are not being met with a therapeutic approach. One example I have of this is when a young client came into my office and stated that she wanted to work on her inner child and being happy again. On our second session, I had brought her a worksheet on how to have fun with your inner child. I quickly found out that I had misunderstood her intention and she wanted to work on childhood trauma. Therapeutic process and boundaries. Sometimes clients are unclear about the goal of therapy or the boundary between the therapist and the client. They may be unsure about what is appropriate to discuss or what is outside the scope of therapy. I personally hear people a lot of times say, I just want to share this with you, but I'm scared to. I respond with, nothing is off limits. This is why I am here. I remind them of duty to report if needed. And I tell them that I am here to be a safe space, somebody safe to talk with. And either I'll hear usually about self-injurious behavior, not suicidal ideation, there is a difference, or about sex in a partnership. Therapeutic relationship and trust issues. Clients may feel uncomfortable or distrustful due to past experiences or personal factors that influence their engagement with therapy. Feelings of stagnation or lack of progress. It's common for clients to express frustrations when they feel that they're not progressing as they had hoped. They may be uncertain about whether therapy is working or whether the therapy approach is sustainable for them. Misalignment of values. Sometimes a client's personal values may conflict with the therapist's approach or beliefs. For example, clients may feel that the therapy approach doesn't align with their cultural, religious, or personal values. Ethical responsibility in addressing client concerns. As therapists, we have an ethical responsibility to address these concerns in a professional and constructive manner. Here's a few ways we can do that. Listen actively and empathetically. When a client raises a concern, our first step should always be to listen without judgment. Practice active listening by reflecting on what the client is saying and validating their feelings. For example, if a client says, I feel like we haven't made much progress, a thoughtful response may be, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated with the pace of our work together, and I understand that. Acknowledge and normalize the concern. Often a simple acknowledgement can go a long way, normalizing the concern by validating that it is common for the clients to have doubts about their progress or the therapy process. Reassure them that it's okay to express concerns, and these conversations are part of the process. Clarify expectations and therapy goals. If a client is uncertain about the goal of therapy or what to expect, it's important to clarify the purpose of the sessions. You can say, in our work together, the goal is to help you build self-awareness and learn new strategies for coping with your challenges. If at any point you feel unsure about where we're going, let's talk about it. Discuss the therapy approach. If a client expresses concerns about the therapeutic approach, it's important to review and explain it in detail. Ask the client what aspects they find challenging or unclear and address the concern. For example, I understand that you're struggling with cognitive behavioral approaches we've been using. How do you feel about trying some alternative methods or integrating other techniques into our work? Maintaining clear boundaries. If the client raises concerns about boundaries, it's essential to review and set clear guidelines. Reaffirm the structure and professional boundaries of the therapeutic relationship. For example, our work together is a safe space for you to explore your emotions and your challenges. But there are certain boundaries that we need to maintain in order for therapy to be effective. Refer when necessary. If a concern arises that is beyond your scope of expertise, it is both ethical and responsible to refer the client to a specialist or another resource. This is part of upholding the NASW standard of competence. Review progress regularly. Regularly check in with the client about their progress. That helps address concerns early and assure that clients are feeling heard and supported. For example, at our next session, let's discuss how you're feeling about our work together and whether there's anything that we should adjust. By adhering to the NASW ethical standards, including active listening, empathy, and transparency, we can navigate these concerns in a way that it strengthens the therapeutic relationship and helps clients to feel seen and respected. Clients' concerns are not obstacles, they are opportunities for growth and deeper engagement in the therapy process. This concludes my presentation. I want to thank you so much for your time today. I hope that you gained some further insight on client rights.
I hope you enjoyed this continuing education course from Agents of Change. Want to earn your CE credits for this course? Visit agentsofchangetraining.com or the link in the description to purchase the course and take the post-test. If you're looking for more CEs, check out our unlimited plan. You will get unlimited access to 150 plus ASWB and NBCC approved continuing education courses for one low annual fee. We're always adding new courses. Did I mention we also have 5 free CE credits available too? Check it out at agentsofchangetraining.com.